Today, for the very first time, we bring you the story of Wade Wilson from the perspective of someone who knew him long before his name made headlines.
What's up, everybody? YouTube Streets Podcast, man. This is New Age Plug. It looks like Jesse is doing more damage control by dropping this random interview with his mother, which they're kind of late on. I mean, they probably had a better chance with the jury if they would have dropped it, even though the jury's not supposed to see this stuff. You know they still do. She should have dropped this like way earlier, but you're way too late, lady. But anyways, let's continue. I'm going to react at the end of this. Salute to everybody in the chat. Make sure you hit the like button. This is the YouTube Streets Podcast. Exclusive interview.
I'm Candy Wilson. I am Wade's adopted mother, and Wade is my third baby. We have two other children. We were married in 1973, and we never tried not to have a baby. And it was 7 years before my first child came, which was a daughter. And then it was 7 years after my first daughter, my second daughter came, which was of course, a girl. And we still wanted more children. About 5 years after my second was born, I ended up with a hysterectomy. So obviously I couldn't have any more, and we put in for adoption. We wanted more children. I would have loved to have a boy. That was just one thing on my mind constantly. And we prayed about it. And it came to my attention one day that there was a young girl, that she had been in my Sunday school class, that was pregnant. And she was 14 years old, and her mom came to me and asked if I was interested in adopting her baby. Well, first she asked if we would take care of her baby after she had the baby for a couple weeks till she could decide what she wanted to do. And I thought, sure, it'd be almost like playing house. I would love it. Anyway, Wade was born, and he was born Anthony Tessasica. He was born, and she brought him over to our house, and he was an infant. He was as cute as a dumpling. I mean, we just fell head over heels for him. I was so excited. In fact, we went out, we bought a bassinet, we bought a few baby things. Even though I knew we were giving him back in 2 weeks, I still wanted him to be comfortable. Time went by, and I guess it was about a week later, we realized how much we loved this little boy. I mean, we were so in love with him, and he looked at us with trusting eyes. We knew that he needed to be with us. So I went to the grandmother, who I knew from church, and she said that her daughter did want to give the baby up for adoption, but she wasn't sure when. So at that point, we thought, well, this is probably out. We had put in for adoption before, and with the state, it takes a long time for adoptions to go through. So we prayed about it again, and we waited. Finally, I got a call from her lawyer, the mother's lawyer, the biological mother's lawyer. And she said to me, do you still want to adopt my baby? And of course, it came out of my mouth before I even probably thought about it. I said, yes, yes, yes. She said, okay, well, I've contacted my lawyer. She said, you have to get a lawyer. So I said, no problem. So we went and got a lawyer, and it turned out she was also a judge. She put the adoption through, and she said, since you have had the little boy for a week, she said, that's like foster care. We can skip that, and we can go right into adoption procedures. And that was around August of the year he was born, in May. And Wade was still very, very little, and the adoption was not going to be finalized until December 22nd of that year, the year he was born. And I thought, well, okay, we've got him in our house. We went out, we bought a crib and all the things baby needs, and we were so excited. She brought him over to us, and I remember her laying him on the couch, and the three of us, because my husband wasn't home at the time. He was a salesman, and he wasn't home. And my two daughters, myself, ran over to him. I was afraid we were going to smother him. We loved him so much, and of course that made the mom very, very happy, but also sad. I could see it in her eyes. I know she didn't want to give him up, but she felt that was the best, and I had no problem with that. Anyway, she left, and we took over Oh, we had clothes for him. We had toys for him. Everything. He was really not able to play as like the girls thought. You know, they tried playing blocks with him. He's still little. He was still having tummy time. So Wade, he grew up and into this wonderful person. But anyway, the adoption did go through on December 22nd. But the biological mom, had 1 year from December 22nd to the next year, December 22nd, to obtain him again. Now, we changed his name from Anthony to Wade. My older daughter said, no, Mom, we can't have anything like, Tom or Henry. We have to have a W. So I've always liked the name Wade, and I said, well, we'll call him Wade, and we'll name him Stephen. Even though my husband's name is Steve, we'll name him Stephen, Wade Stephen Wilson. And we all loved it, and that was great. Anyway, a year went by, and the biological mom never contacted us. But I can tell you one thing. Every time my phone rang, I was scared to death to answer it, because I just was afraid that she would call and say, I want it back. But she never did. Well, he grew up, and with my husband's job, we moved around a lot. We were in quite a few cities in Florida. And we got to one point, we had moved to North Carolina. And Wade he was a stinker. He started kindergarten in North Carolina. And Wade was always very, very independent. When he first started kindergarten, and he said, Mom, you can't take me to school. I've got to take the bus. He's in kindergarten. I didn't want him to take the bus. So I thought, well, okay, you take the bus. I'll follow behind the bus and make sure you get to school. I mean, I was an absolute basket case. Well, I followed him to school. He got into class. It was wonderful. This was his very first day. He came home, but he didn't come home. He went on the bus, on some other bus. I was frantic. My daughters, I had one daughter going one way, one going the other way, and I went another way. Went to the school, trying to find out where he was. Long story short, there was another child in his class that was very frightened and was afraid that they couldn't, I think it was a boy, that he couldn't find his way home. So Wade said, I'll take you home. I'll go on the bus with you. So he went on the bus with this young boy, and the boy got off because his mom was waiting at the bus stop. Wade stayed on the bus. The bus driver saw this, and he called into the school, and so that's how we all connected again. But it had been a couple hours. I was a basket case. It was terrible. So that's one of the things that he did. But as he got older, Wade was such a delight. He always brought me little dandelions every day because we were close enough to the schools that he could walk to school, and he'd hit them for me and he'd bring them in. And in fact, one time he picked a dandelion, got stung by a bee. I felt so bad. But he was such a caring child. I mean, there was no anger in him. He was always smiling. He was always happy. People loved him. I mean, he was really a good child. Things would happen at school, and Wade always stood up for the underdog. He was just, even the teachers would say, Wade is so good. He's always doing this for us and doing that. And Wade always volunteered to do the dirty work. He just did. He was a good kid. Other things that happened when we had Mother's Day, the school that he went to, they brought in some trinkets. Mother's Day pins, Mother's Day flowers and everything, and the children could buy them. Well, Wade picked out something, and I said, well, how much money do you need? He said, oh, you can't give me money. He said, I'm buying it for you. I have to earn it. So he did something, I can't remember what it was, but he did something and I paid him for it. And he went to school. And he brought home, and I still have it, a beautiful little brooch. And it has an arrow and a heart in it. And it says, Mom. I wore that thing so proud. Anyway, Wade was a good kid. He was really good, very loving. Wade always came into me when I was not feeling well, because as I got older, I had a lot of health problems. Wade always wanted to take care of me, because he looked forward to, when he came home from school, me being in the kitchen. And when I wasn't, it would upset him. But when I was in the kitchen, he would come help me cook, and he even invented some recipes on his own. He would make something, and believe it or not, they were amazing recipes. My husband couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it, because he was very young at the time. He was 7, 8 years old. We would eat the food, and everybody would say, "That is so good." So I really thought he was going to be a chef one day. That was some of the things he did. And Wade loved to go camping. Well, I wasn't a camper, but my husband loved to camp. And so he took my one daughter, my middle daughter, because the older one had gone to college. And he took Wade and my daughter up into the mountains of North Carolina, and they went hiking. They had a great time. They were out on like a 10-mile hike. Halfway through, Wade got so tired, my husband carried him on his shoulders. And they came home, and he said, "Oh, I'm so sore." But Wade had an amazing time. The only thing that happened, and I'm so glad I didn't know it at the time, about a week later, my husband told me, they were walking by a river, and it had been raining, I guess, and there were a lot of rapids. And Wade was standing on the bank of the river. And my husband kept saying, "Wade, get away from there. You're going to fall in, and you're going to hurt yourself." Well, he was a little boy, and he would get closer and closer. Well, sure enough, he fell in. And the current started taking him downstream. My husband, he said, I had to keep calm about this and think what I was doing. So my husband ran downstream a little ways where he could grab him. And sure enough, Wade came by, and he grabbed him by the shirt and pulled him up. And Wade was coughing. Now, Wade swam at this point. But, when you're in currents, I'm sure it's hard to swim. But my husband got him out, and he was okay. Of course, when my husband told me, I didn't know whether I wanted to kill my husband or Wade. I was so mad that this happened. I thought, oh, I'm so glad I wasn't there. I would have been a wreck. But anyway, that's just a few things that happened. My daughter reminisced many times about things that with Wade. When my 25th anniversary came, I've been married 51 years now, and when my 25th anniversary came, my older daughter, middle daughter, planned a 25th anniversary party. Wade was about 2 years old at the time. And my husband and I went out shopping, and we were out. When we came back, there was a surprise party. They had a pastor there that remarried us. We renewed our vows, and there was a cake and everything. And they dressed Wade in an outfit. He was 2 or 3. They dressed him in like an 18-month outfit. I mean, it was just way too tight on him. And the poor baby, he walked up to me and he goes, "Mama, it hurts." It was so tight on him. I literally had to rip it off. And when I took him in the bedroom, I said, "Oh, honey, Mommy put some bigger clothes on you." But they loved him so much. I mean, my older daughter, used to come home from school, and the first thing she said wasn't, "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I'm glad to be home." It was, "Where's Wade?" It was always, "Where's Wade?" My middle daughter grew up with Wade more than my older daughter did, and they would go out in the back of the apartment we lived when we were looking for a home up in North Carolina. We lived in these apartments, and there were some blackberries that grew behind us. And Wade and his sister would go out and pick these blackberries and bring them in, and we would make pies and little cupcakes and loaf bread and everything. And they had such a ball. He came in one day, and he had all this all over his face. I said, "Did you put any in your mouth?" I mean, they were in his eyes, they were on his forehead, they were on his cheek, on his chin and his mouth. He had so many blueberries. I thought he was going to be sick. But anyway, he loved that. He had so much fun. We used to take him fishing in one of the neighborhoods that we lived in, that we had fish. By this time, my middle daughter she was off at college, and we used to take Wade periodically fishing. And he would have such a great time. He didn't have to catch anything. I mean, he didn't have to catch it. He would just sit there and tell me about the fish he's going to catch and tell his dad, this is great, Dad. I love it. And then he could put the worms on the hook or whatever they were. I'd just sit there. I'd sit there with the bug spray. That's all I would do. But his dad and Wade had a great time, and they would fish for hours on hours. There was one time Wade came up from school, and I think he was probably in 7th or 8th grade, and he came in and he said, Mom, there's a big snake outside. And I thought, oh, I'm sure he's exaggerating. He's probably not that big. I went outside and looked. It was the largest copperhead. No, it was a water moccasin. I'm sorry. It was a water moccasin, the largest water moccasin I'd ever seen. I'd never seen one so big. I called my husband. He came home from work, and the neighbor next door. They tried to kill it. It was huge. The snake's head was as big as my fist. And Wade wanted to get closer and closer, and I'm pulling him away. Wade, don't get too close. Don't get too close. Wade had no fear of reptiles or dogs or anything. He was just that way. When we went to the zoo, he would stand by the giraffes, and they would lean over the fence and lick his head, whatever it was. It didn't scare him. No, nothing. The only thing that frightened Wade was when we would swim. My husband always used to throw my 2 daughters up in the air and then catch them in the water, and they just loved it. Well, Wade said, me next. So my husband picked them up, threw them up high. Well, his arms flared out, and his eyes got as big as bugs. He was scared to death. He got in that water, and he said, Mommy, no more. He was so scared, and at that point, I realized he's not too much of a daredevil. And we would take him to Disney, and he would go on Splash Mountain. He would be okay. Thunder Mountain scared him a little bit. He didn't like Space Mountain. But as he got older, he did go on Space Mountain. That was one of his favorite ones. As he got older, he'd go on with his sister. They'd stand in line, and I would sit outside because we had annual passes. And I'd watch them. They'd go on this thing for 5 or 6 times, and I'd say, "Aren't you guys tired yet?" I mean, I was getting tired watching them. They had a great time. We love him so much, more than you can ever imagine. I hope and I pray every night, almost that it's a nightmare that I'll wake up from this. I love him. I miss holding him. I know he's a big boy. I know he's not a baby anymore, but I miss holding him. He's still my little baby. And I'll always remember the day that we adopted him. We changed his name. My mom and dad were alive at the time, and they came into the courtroom, and my husband was there, and my 2 girls were there, and of course myself and Wade, and I had him on my lap, and he was just playing with a keychain. And when the judge said, well, he's now yours, for better or for worse, sickness or for health, and I never thought there'd be a worse like this. The only other one that I could think was bad was Wade was up in North Carolina with us, and I put him in his sleeper because he's so little. He's probably about 4. Put him in his sleeper and tucked him in, and we always prayed before we went to bed, and I sang to him, Jesus loves me. And I can't carry a tune for anything. But he loved to hear me sing. And later down, I was looking at him, and his lips were turning blue. And I got nervous, and I said to I screamed to my husband, come in, quick. And I said, look at Wade's lips. He said, oh, no, I think he's fine. He had a lollipop. And I said, no, we brushed his teeth. He's fine. He's not fine. I said, there's something wrong. So I started watching him. He's laying there, and he had labor breathing. And, I guess moms know things that dads don't realize. And at that point, I grabbed him and I said, we are going to the emergency room. Got in the car. Sure enough, he had pneumonia. Had to stay overnight. They did an IV with antibiotics. And, that was the scariest time because I thought that I was going to lose him. I really was. Yes, he was adopted and he didn't grow under my heart, but he grew in our hearts. He knew he was adopted, and we had a closed adoption. We tried to make this as easy as possible for him. I told the biological mom that she could write him a letter, whatever she wanted to do, which she did. It was a beautiful letter. She wanted me to read it. And she said, we gave the Wilsons you because I was too young, he couldn't afford to raise you, and just beautiful things. And she said, you can give it to Wade whenever. We thought 18 was a good time. He was old enough that they might understand it. And it turned out, when he was about 15, 16, he started having an identity crisis. I could see it. That's when his hormones were changing, and he kept saying, well, why didn't they want me? And so at that point, we gave him the letter, and I said, if you want to meet them, I will take you. Your dad and I will take you to meet them. I have no problem with that. I said, honey, we love you, and we always know you love us. But if you want to meet them, we will do that. No, I don't want to meet them. I'm not interested. So, I kept asking him, and I didn't want to make it hard on him. But I didn't want him to think he was making it hard on us. So, but he didn't want to do it. We kind of left it there. And I think he still had an identity crisis for a long time. At that point, I remember saying to Steve that we need to see a doctor. And we took, of course, insurance. You have to take him to a family doctor first, which we did. And I told the doctor that I felt like Wade was changed differently. And of course, he kept saying, no, he's a boy. And I said, look, I have a good intuition about him. I said, are you sure it's just a boy thing? And I said, he seems to have, his personality. I'm worried about him. No. I said, should we get into a therapist? He said, oh, no, there's nothing wrong with him. So at that point, I thought, you know what? Still don't feel good about this. So my husband, we got into another physician, and he said, well, if we feel something's wrong with him, then maybe there is. Let's go to a child's psychologist. So we did. And of course, that's when the diagnosis Wade with bipolar. I knew there was something wrong. We got medication for him. It was real good at the beginning to take it, but then as he got older and started feeling good, he didn't take it. Anyway, I do love him. And I hope you guys love him like I do. He's a good kid. He's a good guy. And he would never do this kind of stuff. I just know he wouldn't. And I know him. I know him more than anybody in this world. I know my son. And that's it.
Wait, did she just say that he's innocent? That's crazy. This was a little bit different from the letter we got during the sentencing, for him getting the death penalty. Candy, I think, is a little bit naive when it comes to Wade Wilson and his adult years, What happened to this whole story of you moving to Tennessee to avoid him? And I feel like there's a lot she's not telling us. Because we know living life, there's not just happy moments. There had to be some negative stuff, and there could have been some signs. But to me, it looks like Wade Wilson was a privileged little white boy. Look, when it comes to Disney, I'm from Florida. When it comes to Disney passes, the only time I went to Disney was a field trip at Palmview Elementary. Disney passes? Oh, he was privileged, man. I'm from a place where we barely had Busch Gardens passes, Jungle Gardens. Like, what did you do for his adult years, Did you guys just tell him, hey, you got to get it how you live? Because that's what it seems like to me. It seems like he had a tough time transitioning into being an adult. So he already got left as a baby, so he felt like he got left again when he came an adult. That's why he went back to find Steve. That's just my opinion on that, though. This is New Age Plug. You did it again. U2 Streets Podcast, man. Make sure y'all hit the like button. This was the exclusive Candy Wilson interview.